Here we go now. Hey,
Man,
turn up. Hey.
hey, homie, I told you straight up a confidence. You see what I'm talking about? Hey, this is dedicated to the homies. You feel what I'm saying? Sometimes I get just beside myself. The return of Enoch is back. You hear what I'm talking about? I've been looking for you my whole life. Appetite for the feeling like a better describe. When you're inside,
Hey.
and a woman isn't it running her mankind. Something got me losing my mind. Pull your hands from the front to the back. I'm looking for you, hurry react. Only when you react. I thought I found you back in the ghetto when I was 17 with the 30 special. Maybe you're in a dollar bill, maybe you're not real. Maybe only the wealthy get to know how you feel. Maybe you're paranoid. Maybe I don't need you anyway. Don't lie to me. I'm suicidal when you did. I can be your advocate. I can speak for you if you tell me what the matter is. I can preach for you with the money. So I'm the one. How can I overcome negative energy? But I can feel in the end survive.
Yo, 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 yo. What's good? It's your boy Lo, man, and we are back for another episode of The World According to Lo. That's right, man. What better way to start this pod than that vibe right there, baby. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar, man, and that was his performance off of the Saturday Night Live episode, man. They just murdered that joint. But, you know, anywho, we're going to get this pod going. I believe today is episode 64. Give it up. Give me some claps. We easing our way on up to 100, man. We had a couple of little difficulties earlier in the stream, but, you know, shout out to the loyalty crew for always hanging out and being on top of that. Anywho, man, I'm gonna do my intro in a minute. I just want to say, man, today I'm taping this late. Matter of fact, it is 9:38 my time. Normally I have the pod already recorded by now, but I went out, took my kids and my family. We all went out with some of their friends, trick-or-treating. We take them like, it's not really trick-or-treating. I don't want to say that. Our neighborhood does something where they just allow the kids to come, like, get candy safely and whatnot. And the kids, like, they just get a blast out of it. We've been doing it forever and a day. And so we took some time to do that. And I mentioned that because I want y'all to make sure that you're taking time for the things that matter. We often work ourselves to the bone, but a lot of times, man, we give up and sacrifice the people who love us the most and who depend on us the most. So I want to make sure that you guys are doing what it takes, are doing the things that allow you to maximize, you know, the opportunities to be present. And that's what I did today. So we spent a couple hours out. So I'm recording a later podcast, but it's all worth it in the end. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about getting into the pod today, man. A lot has been going on. I had a great weekend. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about something that I want to get into a little later in the pod. But y'all know I cannot get into this without, you know, getting this pod officially started. So y'all with me? Y'all got your boy? You there? Y'all watching on YouTube or the website, wherever you watching. Let's get it. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. In your cars, in your AirPods, wherever you at. Come on. It's the world according to Lo. That's right. So, it's gonna be a good. Yo, episode 64, man. 64, and we are here. We in the building. Man, I'm so ecstatic. It feels, look, 50 felt like it took a while to get to. 100 feels like we're slowly taking baby steps to get to 100. But I do want to do something unique and special for 100, the 100th episode. So y'all give me some ideas. What would y'all like to see us do to celebrate the podcast 100 episodes? Now listen, I'm also uploading the visuals to this episode or to these episodes on my YouTube page. I'm trying to get up, like my production company has pretty decent numbers. Not like I'm not in the tens of thousands or anything like that, but I was on my way. I just stopped posting. I started feeling like the politics of YouTube began to really take the fun out of it, so I left it alone. Back then, excuse me, I had a lot of videos that went viral, man. Like some Call of Duty stuff we had did, and like some other sketches and things of that nature. And I was really thriving on YouTube. But I was finding that it was kind of interesting because the corporate work or the bigger projects that I was wanting and was getting did not leave a lot of room for my personal like ideas. So between the two, I really just kind of got burnt out and left it alone completely. But now I had started my own channel, another channel just dedicated to things that I do. And that's where you can find me on YouTube, Aloysius Ballard. So check that out, man. Give your boy a follow or subscribe, whatever they call it over there in YouTube land. And let's get it, man. So episode 64, we're trucking along. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about my weekend. So I, my production company, my new launch network, the BEPS network, BEPS Beyond Expectations Production Studios is my production company. Actually, we volunteer our time and our skill sets for the Wounded Warrior Project here in our area. Now, the Wounded Warrior Project was started to help wounded veterans transition back into civilian life. And I want to make sure I'm saying this right, because these guys deserve all, when I say all of the support that we can muster up and give them, because they are amazing. And because of that, we partner with them, the local chapter here on the Gulf Coast, and it's one of my favorite events. We go out, and what they do is normally the leading up to the last weekend in November, like leading up to November, it's like either the last weekend of the month or it's like the second to last weekend of, I guess it is the last weekend of the month of October. They do a fishing tournament for these guys, and they come in and they're paired with the boat captain who takes them out fishing, and it's a great day. And it's so humbling because I love being able to hear their great stories, the amazing ways they sacrifice their lives, and to come back to just have us as society like forget that they exist. We often just don't think about our veterans in America. We may think about servicemen when we see them on an airplane or we see them in some type of situation in passing, but a lot of times we don't necessarily think about the ones who sacrifice their lives for our freedoms that we have every day. So this is a great way for me to give back, to stay in contact and in touch and serve these amazing veterans who gave the ultimate sacrifice. So we went out. We were a little worried about the weather, but the weather ended up, thank God, working out for us. And it was great. It was one of those scenarios where like the rain held off exactly until like we finished. And when I tell you the bottom fell out, it fell out. But we were done. We had done all the giveaways, all of the trophies were given out. And it was a great day, man. It was great. It was great. I got up super early, and I didn't complain because, like I said, everything about this day, everything about this project is us putting ourselves on the line for them to have a great weekend. And I was happy to do that. If you want to see the video or the recap on that, that is on the BEPS network. You can find that on YouTube as well. Matter of fact, give that a subscribe or a follow. Or the write-up will be finished soon, and it'll be up on the BEPS network website, bepsnetwork.com. Moving on, because it's already late and I don't want to have to, I still got to edit this thing and get it up on internet for you guys. Moving on, today is Halloween, and I want to, it kind of led me to talk about something in particular. So I've been working with some new fellow creatives and things of that nature. And I want to tell you a story, right? So we go out to, the kids were walking about today, and I watched them. You know, I'm being a dad, and all the kids have costumes on. A lot of the adults have costumes on as well. And one thing I had my camera, but it was extremely dark, so I was like I was just testing a lot of times, this is a side note, like I like to put my cameras in like the worst scenarios possible. I do that because when I'm often, like, it's easy to shoot things when everything's perfect, right? That's a lot like life. Like, we can go through life easily because we know, hey, I'm healthy, my job's secure. Like, when everything's secure, we crush life, right? Like, it's not a difficult place for us to manage. When chaos happens, when the unknown variables happen, we often struggle because we don't prepare for the worst. I didn't say you gotta be fearful of the worst happening. I'm just saying we never consider the worst case scenario, which means that a lot of times we are often unprepared for when it does happen. And I guess I'm all of this is a culmination of me spending time with the veterans this weekend, and a lot of them talk about how much training they had to endure to deal with the worst case scenario. One veteran this week told me that he had lost his limbs, part of his thigh, part of his calf. He had shrapnel still lodged into like his neck and like spinal area. And to hear a person describe being surrounded by the enemy and having to watch your friends and best friends be killed or blown apart was something that sticks with you for a bit, right? And because of that, I couldn't help but understand that they were still here because they prepared for the worst. He said they had to save his life on a chopper. So even when medevac came, they were operating on him on a helicopter in a war zone. And I couldn't help but think about how oftentimes we are unprepared, right, for the worst case scenarios. Now, take that thought and we're going through trick-or-treating tonight. I guess I'm gonna just stick with trick-or-treating. That's because that's what most people call it. We were going through trick-or-treating tonight. Everybody had the mask on. A lot of people had costumes on. A lot of people were there, but you didn't know what their identity was. You didn't know who they were, if they were a friend, if they were safe, if it was a foe, if it was harmful. Because a lot of times during Halloween, terrible things can happen because it's easy to hide in plain sight, right? And I was thinking about how that transpires, or that also reflects like how we live our lives, man. Like social media, life in general, we're often masked up. And this is, now that I say it out loud, this is at no means a pun to the pandemic. I'm saying we are hiding behind things that don't reflect our true identity. We were walking through, and my son was walking with me. At one point we were talking, and I had called out to him about not going too far ahead. And my point of explaining to him was that someone could easily snatch him, or could easily disrupt him by him being alone or being away from safety of those who are looking out for him, right? And just listen to me, because I'm going somewhere. And because of that, we begin to have this conversation about how you couldn't identify who took him based, or who could harm him based on the fact that everybody was in costume. And I mentioned the story earlier about the worst case scenarios and being prepared, because I wanted my son to understand that danger is always around. Danger is always seeking its prey. It's opportunity to leap into action, right? And I'm curious about this because as a filmmaker, we document so many things, but we also have the power to create whatever worlds or narratives that we want. You know, if I want to make a horror film, I can make a horror film. I can make it seem like the characters are being executed in the most bloodiest of ways. It could seem very real, but it's all make-believe. Or is it? Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know the reality of what something could be until you're in the middle of it. I think a lot about how those soldiers talk about being able to go into a scenario that you know is harmful, but then not knowing that a kid could be the very danger that your brain is telling you to protect, right? And a lot of times we go through life and we go through these scenarios where we're so trusting of things. And I'm saying this because I look at how easy it is to appear to be connected to someone. How easy it is to believe that you have safety in places that you don't really have. Now, Lo, what do you mean? And y'all know we talk as creatives about the things that we do. I was listening to Joe Budden's podcast the other day, and when I got on YouTube, I saw the antithesis of what he was talking about. So Joe, and all of this has a point, because I don't think it's by chance that on Halloween, I'm having this conversation about the mask we wear, right? Because when I first came into play, or when I first discovered the Joe Budden podcast, it was Joe Budden, it was a guy named Rory, and a guy named Maul, right? So it was to my understanding that Maul and Joe were longtime friends, that they had known each other for a significant amount of time. They were close. Rory was also a friend. I don't think he had as much road with Joe as Maul did. And from the audience standpoint, this was like the best scenario you could ask for. They were getting money together as friends. They were creating not just in my opinion, numbers don't lie. They were creating one of the most premier and elite podcasts in the game, in the nation, in the world. And because of that, everything looked very perfect. And I don't even want to say perfect, just flourishing and prosperous, right? But that's not how it ended. So they end up separating. Joe was left. Joe calls it a mutiny. They call it trying to get their due diligence, and Joe was stealing from them. All these things, and we thought it was put to bed. They were just going to go their separate ways. Well, no. Fast forward to today, and the conversation is still being had, but more toxic nastiness is being spewed because they both have the major platforms. Rory and Maul are taking jabs at Joe. Joe is responding, but trying not to respond. He's trying to, keep the high road, I guess, in his perspective, where he would not be the person having to respond and just go back and forth in a mudslinging contest. And now you see Parks, who was also a part. He was the engineer of the show, who now has a more prominent role on the Joe Budden podcast because Joe went out and tasked two more of his childhood friends to now be his co-host. And he often mentions that this is his second opportunity to be tested as a guy working with his friends in this space that includes often a nice bag of money. And now I'm looking at what once was a perception of what I imagine the camaraderie between Joe, Rory, and Maul to be. And now I see that masks are off. Joe is saying things about Maul that we never had access to. Maul is saying things about Joe that we never had access to. Rory is saying things, and it's all just the worst case scenario. Because to me, there's nothing more terrifying than building up something of value to just watch it blow away in the wind. Think about if you worked hard to save $10,000 or $50,000 or $500,000, right? And then you bring it all together and you're trying to take it somewhere secure. And when you come out, you trip and fall, and all of your money, you've seen these movies where the wind just takes it and the money's all blowing all over the place. And it's impossible for you to just get it all back. Well, that's terrifying to me. I wouldn't want to dedicate that much time to something that could easily be so fleeting. The worst case scenario. Maybe that's what I'll call this. There's a poem that I learned that says, if the worst is bound to happen, spite of all that you can do, running from it cannot save you. See it through. A lot of times we don't see it through. I think about that soldier still telling me the story of, had he given up, how his family would not have been able to see him again. Had he just said, oh my gosh, the enemy has us surrounded, there's no way out. What would have happened had he had lost hope? We are often faced with scenarios that go beyond our reach. Things that we cannot endure by ourselves. But we can see it through. And that's what I want to make sure because this podcast is literally a reminder for us to know that we can do whatever we want to do in this life. We can live our dreams. We can carry out the purposes that we're meant to do. But in the end, if it does not make us better, then what is it for? That soldier was now, and he talked about it. He tried to commit suicide. I think he told me like 3 or 4 times. Thankfully, unsuccessfully. His words, not mine. Because he said, if I had, I wouldn't have learned and understood that the worst case scenario doesn't redefine my purpose and value in this life. See, we oftentimes talk about these things that we do because we want it easy. See, I realize too, like, I have to be careful in believing that just because I have a slight struggle, that is actually the worst case scenario. Sometimes trials come our way. Tribulations. But our job is to be like that soldier. Even in the midst of not understanding how everything around you could be what it actually supposed to be. A lot of people, like I said, your enemy, your safe place may not be what it seems. There could be dangers in costumes all around you. People seeking to harm you. People seeking to do you ill. But it doesn't matter if you're prepared. I tested my son. I let him go. He drifted off again. And I let him get far enough where we were out of sight. And I snuck up on him. And I tried to grab him. And his instincts kicked in. Because we had just talked about being cognizant of the worst case scenario. I don't know what you face in your life, but I often realize that there are people that you work with, people that come around you that treat your life and your journey as its opposition, as its competition. And because of that, you got to always keep your head on the swivel, because if the worst scenario is bound to happen, it is up to you to be prepared to see it through. Shout out to the Loyalty Crew, man. I love y'all, man. Keep supporting your boy. If you want to support your boy, hey, man, listen, I would love to have your support. You can sign up on patreon.com, Aloysius Ballard. And, yeah, you can also go to my website, aloysiusballard.com, and help out there. And it's a link there. But I want you to know that, man, your life matters. You bring value to this world, regardless of what you think or say. Doesn't change a thing. And until next time, man, I'm going to catch y'all in the next one. Remember, see it through. The worst case scenario does not redefine your value in this world. It's your boy Lo, man. Thank y'all for listening. If this is your first time, hopefully this won't be your last one. And I'll see y'all in 65, man. Peace.